Hello there everybody, and a very warm welcome to today's video. We're on the Plan G today. We're doing a bit of VFR, which is, I know, a little bit strange, but it's something that we are going to be attempting today. Flying the Piper PA-28 from Stapleford airfield in Essex to Shoreham down in Brighton, and today we are flying. Obviously, like I say, VFR, but we've got to be a little bit careful. The reason why we have Plan G open is because we have to avoid some airspace and know some restrictions, etc., etc. So, a little bit of information regarding Plan G. It's a bit of software which tells you, sort of shows you the airspaces, the restrictions, helps you plan. helps you do some flight planning, and go around like so. So I've just pressed connect. So it's shown the big yellow PA-28 aircraft today, which is, like I say, is found at Stapleford Aerodrome. The way we're flying today, we're heading out towards sort of Brentwood area, over the sort of Essex sort of area, of sort of Basildon, as you can sort of see there. The reason why we're leaving this controlled airspace is because there's a limit at 2,500 feet, I believe. Yeah, 2,500 of Class A airspace, and then we're going to head out towards sort of Southend area where it's 3,500, and as soon as we then fly over the water, over sort of Kent sort of way, down over Detlin, and then we're flying sort of towards the coast, and then we'll come back to Plan G, or we'll use the GPS in the flight to help us plan a little further. So there is the Piper for today's flight, Golf Kilo Echo Lima Sierra. Here's Orbix Stapleford, as you can see. We'll get a little bit of a better view of that when we're taxiing out to the runway here this morning. So a bit of excuse me, I've got a bit of a cough, so if I do start coughing, you understand why. So bit of a excuse me, bit of a low cloud base today. So obviously flying VFR, we have to be below the cloud base. I'm not exactly a pro in the Piper. I mean, bare minimum is what I know. Bare minimum is what to sort of be expected. We all make mistakes, and we all do things a little bit differently. So let's just appreciate that, and then hopefully you guys can enjoy the video. So let's get to the main showdown, which is in the flight deck today. The fuel is fine. We've got the one pilot. We're going to have no passengers. Just me today. A little bit of baggage as well, because I've decided to take a bag which weighs 40 kilos apparently, which is a incredible lot, considering, there we go, 10 kilos is fine with that. Okay, so enough oil, that's okay. We've been to the hangar this morning and we've had a little look inside. Everything is okay. We're in beautiful shape, which is perfect. So we can now go from there to lose the tie downs, lose the control locks, lose the wheel chocks, and lose the covers. We'll leave the door open just for the minute to prevent it from steaming up, and then we'll go from there. So checklist today, we're not going to do any exterior checks because, you know, it takes a little bit of a long time to go through, and to be fair, you can't sort of simulate me being there on the ground. So, well, you potentially can, but not very well. So excuse me. So the internal and startup checklist. So seat is adjusted and locked, hatches and harnesses is fine, parking brake is on, which it is, radios are off, which they are, instruments are untouched, or as we found them, flight controls are free and movement, obviously, that's fine. Trims are, the trim is fine at the minute, we're neutral there. Flaps, will extend the flaps, and then they'll just ensure that they have come out, which they have, and then we'll put them back up. Like so, perfect. Cabin air controls is fine. The throttle set to a quarter open, which we have done there. Mixture, we'll set full. Throttle friction checked and loose, that's fine. Carburetor heat is fine. Or that's fine. Sorry. Master switch can now come on. The circuit breakers, we've got no circuit breakers. They're all in. That's fine. The beacon lights can also now come on. Fuel pumps can come on for the time being, and we'll ensure the tank we required is the left hand tank for the time being. That's fine. Turn off the fuel pumps. There they go. And then we'll turn the primer. One more. That's fine. Okay, then lock that. Put it in position and close the door now. And then we shout out clear prop, and then magnetos into both and operate the starter. There we go, perfectos. That's fine. That can sort itself out. Set local QNH, which has been set. Now the radio panel can come on, and we'll go back and we'll get ourselves a GPS. We'll go for that GPS there. That's fine, and we'll turn that on. Let that sort of initiate. Find its location, and then that is all okay. So squawking 7,000 today. That's fine. We'll go Unicorn 122.8, which is also fine. And we will be operating with some autopilots as well today, and we'll be sort of basic flight with a bit of headings, and we'll fly with headings and stuff like that. Anyway, I'll start set to 1,200. That's fine. Obviously, you know, you're supposed to set it to 1,200, but I've had a bit of a bug recently where the parking brake isn't doing what it's sort of supposed to do. So we'll set the RPM 1,200. Once it's gone above that, that's fine. Which it has done. That's perfect. None of that. Magnetos checked. That's fine. Instruments set was required. Radios lookout as the aircraft is fine. There's nothing all around the aircraft which is obstructing us from taxiing. So that's fine. Call for taxi clearance, which is fine. The brakes are fine, and we'll now get ready for departure. Obviously, we'll do some power checks if we need to, depending on if the parking brake is willing to be friendly. We'll set flaps into position 1 for departure today, and we'll go straight ahead here. I know that trying to find a way through the grass here at Stapleford is a bit of a pickle. Oh, can be a bit of an issue. We may need to go over the grass. Looks like we're going to have to go through the long grass, isn't it? Onto the taxiway. That's certainly the way, unfortunately, it's looking this morning. So through the grass we go. Break a left-hand turn onto the taxiway. There we go. We'll join the taxiway now. That is fine. And it's all the way around. Then we've got to do some power checks. Okay, so taxi checklist. The brakes, they're working fine. The rudder is fine. Differential braking is also checked. The instruments are as required and ready to go. So after departure, we'll fly a bit of runway heading, and then obviously, excuse me. So we'll fly a bit of runway heading, and then we'll try and avoid the airspace. Like I say, head towards south end sort of area, and then down towards Shoreham. Okay, so that's fine. Parking brake is set. Power checks. RPM to 1,200. That's fine. Fuel. Change to the filler tank, which in this case is the right hand tank. We'll set that. Engine temperatures are fine. RPM are now to 2,000. I don't want to start moving, that's all, which it obviously is starting to do. RPM 2,000, that's fine. Check brakes are holding, which they are just about. That's fine. Carburetor heat set to hots. And obviously it's dropping down now. There we go, that's fine. Then we'll stick that back into cold. Suction between 3 and 5. Altimeter is fine. Engine temperatures are within the limits. Perfectos. In the red on the right hand side there. We have to keep an eye on that. Oil pressure. It looks okay. Between the yellow and the green. That's fine, and everything is in between the limits. Okay. Okay, ready for takeoff. Previous takeoff. Trimmer is set. Throttle is as required. Mixture is rich. Magnetos are on or as required. Pilot heats are as required. primer is in and locked, fuel is on, and the right hand pump flaps are as required. Instruments are required, harnesses are fine, hatches are fine, doors are locked, carburetor hits, sets are cold, controls are full and free, transponder is as required. Takeoff. Clearances, receive the clearance, look out, runway approach and departure lights, so the lights are as required. Let's get onto the runway. Okay, then that's good. Okay, take off. Okay, so here we go. RPM set full power. Engine temperatures are fine, they're in the green. Airspeed is increasing, 40 knots. Struggling to keep that centre line a little bit this morning. And around 70 knots will pull back. Aim for a nice rotation, which we've done very, very nicely there. So we're going to climb up to around about 1,000 feet. Just keep maintaining runway heading for the time being. And we need the yaw count now. And autopilot master can come on. That can go to heading select, which is fine. And we've now gone on to the heading select, which is going to spin us around. So we now need to head sort of towards the 210 degrees sort of area, which we will do. And obviously we'll maintain the climb as required. The flaps can come up. And in just a second we'll do the after takeoff checklist. So now we'll maintain altitude now. There we go, altitude maintaining, there we go, that is perfectos. Flaps are up, temperatures are perfect and the pressures are perfect, radios are as required. QNH is fine, fuel pumps are obviously off, radio navies are as required. I'll take a checklist complete. No stall checklist is fine. And the next checklist will be the cruise or the landing checklist, depending on how we are. So now, instantly, we're heading towards city's airspace, as you can see. So what we're going to do is we'll go back to plan G, where you can sort of see us now. The purple line is where we're going. We're heading towards city airspace. We need to make quite a steep turn away from city airspace and head towards sort of south end area. Maybe not towards as far as towards Essex as we was actually anticipating. We'll go 060 on the heading. That's fine. It says trimming up. We don't need to trim up. We can trim up using the power. There we go. This is what I mean about the cloud. It's a little bit low this morning. So obviously, like I say, 2,100 feet at the minute. As you can see, we've started to turn towards Essex, which is fine. And the airspace obvious restrictions that we do have, so we're not going below. No, we're not going above 2,500 feet as it stands. So, back in the aircraft where the GPS is going to come into play. Just ensuring that we still see the ground. That's the most important thing here. last thing we want to do is be flying the VFR really, really low today. But I don't think we're going to get much lower than this. So let's Stansted out to the left-hand side there. If we zoom in on the GPS, let's Stansted out to the left-hand side. We have Southend down to the right. So what we can do now is obviously we're avoiding the airspace quite nicely. Just ignore the trim. That's fine. We're going to sort of head towards sort of Southend way now, which is completely okay. So we're headed towards 120 degrees, and we'll start our way down towards the coastline of the United Kingdom, with the ultimate final stop being Shoreham. The little alarm you can hear in the background, if you can hear it, is the trim, not a trim warning. So every now and then we'll get that. So we are avoiding airspace quite nicely. We are probably going to roughly touch the ILS into City. So that's the one thing we do have to be careful about, is the City approach path. But obviously at this altitude, everything is going to be okay, as it stands anyway. A little bit bumpy. That's completely normal though, and I honestly don't think we're going to get much higher than this, which is a bit of a shame, but that's how it's going to have to be. Maybe if we're lucky, it might be a bit of a break. It's all sort of Shoreham area, so down by the coast, according to Active Sky anyway. It's all sort of a Hastings area. There's a bit of a break in the weather, which may mean we can get a little bit higher, but that's a bit potentially a bit late, and not really something we need to be worrying about. So that's the trim warning again. We'll put a bit of power on and climb a little bit higher. Obviously the limit here is 2,500 feet, and the limit has been set for a reason. And we'll lose a bit of power now, and we will just trim down just a little bit. I believe that is the M25 we're flying over. I will just check plan G. Yes, that's the A12. The M25 is the next stretch of motorway coming up. So what we're flying over there is just the A12 interchange between Braintree, Brentwood, and that's the interchange. The road out to the left hand side is the M25. So this strip of road here we're about to fly over is the famous motorway around London, the big motorway that does the loop around London. And I don't know if this is quite a sort of key strip motorway for VFR. I mean, I wouldn't really know too well. Anyhow, cruise checklist, because we can. The fuel is okay, and we've got enough enough fuel to get us to Brighton. Radio navigator fine. We've got Unicom set 1 to dissimulate 7,000 on the Squawk. Engines are as required. We'll just check the temperatures, which are all in the green at the bottom, and all the pressure is okay at the top. The directional indicator is synchronized. I mean, we're flying the right heading, which is being suggested there, and the altimeter is fine. The local QNH is set, and we are within altitude restrictions. If you're wondering where I got my checklist from, I got it from Flight Store. This isn't some advertisement sort of basis thing. I got it from Flight Store. PA28 checklist and the DA42 checklists. All you aspiring airline pilots out there will completely understand why I got the DA42 and why I got the PA28. They are the normal training aircraft. So spin it on round out to 150, and we'll head back in to Plan G, where you can see where we're sort of going here. So the purple line is our flight plan. So there's Brentwood. So we're headed towards sort of Brentwood area, towards sort of Basildon area. Kind of an airfield called Barnard's Farm, which we'll keep an eye out for on the left-hand side. And so we are about to come down and go sort of around this sort of area where the aircraft approach London City. So obviously we're on VATSIM, but there's no traffic around. But obviously in real life, let's keep our eyes out. Probably would avoid flying in this way, but you can sort of get a rough idea now where we're heading, etc, etc. So looking for that airfield now. I don't know whether we'll be able to see it or not. That's another matter. It's a bit in the distance, but you never know. Still in Class A airspace, London TMA1. Altitude restriction here is, like I say, still 2,500 feet. If we shifted to the excuse me, if we shifted to the left a little bit, the restriction then increases to 3,500, and all sort of Shoreham area, which is Class B airspace, I believe, and it's 5,500. That's the restriction there. I might need to just shift it to the right a little bit more in just a little while. I don't know just yet, but I didn't see the airfield, so that's apparently a little bit behind us now. Headed down towards sort of Hastings area and then down towards sort of Shoreham. That's fine by me. That's okay. And we're fine. So if anything, if we got to try and avoid Gatwick's airspace, obviously. Class D airspace. That's Gatwick. So, by the way, it looks like we'll be staying in this 2,500 sort of restricted airspace, which I personally haven't really got a problem with. We are okay. The south end out to the left hand side there, a little bit farther out to the left out there is south end on sea, and we're going to bring it to just heading towards south now, which is 180 degrees, I believe. Now we're going to ignore the trim alarm. We're going to set a bit of power, get a bit more climb in this. There we go. And now we should level off the nose, which it has done rather nicely. And now, as you can see, we've got a little bit higher and a little bit closer to the cloud, implying that it's a little bit more bumpy. There we go. It's a risk that we've had to take, and it's a risk I was willing to make, and there was no intention for it to rhyme there. They've done rather well there. So city's just out to the right hand side of the aircraft. We're coming over the Thames now. There's the bridge. Is it the QE2 bridge? Don't quote me on that. And as you look roughly, you can see approach lights to the city, I believe. No, it looks like there's another aircraft. Yeah, there's another aircraft by the looks of it. So there we go. Keeping our eyes peeled, paid off. So where we are at the minute, we'll head back to Plan G. So there's London City. The aircraft is sort of towards the city, probably in the approach for Heathrow. Just heading over Grays now, over the Tilbury area, and over Gravesend. Tilbury Port is also an area where we're about to fly over, and so back into the simulator to see Tilbury Port, which is, there's the power stations. Which is there, and the port is there. There's Tilbury Port in its prime, and what prime that is, I honestly don't know. there it is, there's Tilbury Port. There's the approach to the city as well. It's quite busy, the port, by the looks of it. A few boats in there, which is always good to see. And here we can start to see towards the sort of northeast, the Gatwick control zone, which we need to stay well away. Okay, so next bit of planning we're going to endure is looking at how we're going to be approaching Shoreham itself. So still 2,500 limit, still Class A airspace around London. Down in Brighton we have a limit of 5,500. Class A worth in CTA Sector 1, which to me, I don't really know what that means. However, I know the way into Brighton today for us is going to be the following. We're going to head down the coast, or head straight ahead as it is, towards the coast, and as soon as we get the coast we'll follow the coast down to Shoreham, which is, in my opinion, the one of the best ways in. Don't quote me on that anyway, but I think it's one of the best ways in, because when you're following the coast, you know you're going to come across Brighton at some point, and then we'll probably see the pier. And considering our approach into Shoreham, the weather down in Shoreham at the moment, what's it saying? Down in Shoreham, scattered clouds, 4 knots on the winds, there's perfect wind, visibility is only 1.9 statute miles. Could be a bit of an issue, a few broken clouds at 700 feet, also another issue, and scattered clouds at 1,000 feet, temperature is 6 degrees, 1026 on the QNH. So, basically what that means is it's going to be quite a low cloud base, which isn't too good, but I mean, as it stands at the minute, we're in a bit of cloud, but we can still see the ground, which is the most important thing. And I mean, if we have to do a few low approaches to kind of get our bearings at Brighton, there is nothing quite wrong with that. So as you can see, we're sort of way away from Gatwick's airspace. Don't need to talk to Gatwick or anything like that. There's no Gatwick controllers on anyway at the moment. So it's all okay, to be completely honest, for the time being anyway. No wind, which, well, to be completely honest, is good, but then again, it is quite a low cloud base, which you do need to obviously consider. But there's nothing that we can't handle. Here we go, we're okay. A little bit of terrain area now, so it could get a little bit choppy, which is, well, again, is completely fine. Ignore the trimming noise yet again. What is it saying to trim? It's saying trim down. That's fine, we can fix that. Give it a bit of down trim. There we go, lovely jubbly. Then we'll trim down a bit more. Right, let's speed up a little bit. We'll have to trim down more. The higher the speed, the more trim we have to down, which never really a good thing, I suppose. So this terrain ahead of us looks like it could get a little bit interesting, but we're okay. We should be fine. We'll probably bring it a little bit to the right now. Oh, my apologies. We'll probably bring it a little bit to the right. Obviously, trying to avoid Gatwick's airspace in the meantime as well. And it looks like we might just avoid it. Gonna probably touch the southeast of it, but that's nothing that would is an issue. We can still vector around that. That's completely fine. So a little bit of information. We are currently 2,116 feet up. We're 200 degrees. And we have a ground speed of 106 knots, which is quite nice. It's quite good. And the cloud's forming rather rapidly now, which is not a good thing. Okay, so just keeping an eye on the ground now. Obviously the last thing we want is to lose the sight, and obviously the sight in front of us is absolutely atrocious now, to be honest. But I can still see where we're going, literally very, very faintly. So what we've established here is the further south we're going, the worse the weather's clearly getting, and maybe that weather down in Shoreham is going to be a little bit worse than this. And there we go, I found a little clear way through there. There should be clear skies in just a minute. I mean, there's a break in the weather, like I say, down by Hastings, which is literally where we're heading for. Or sorry, sort of Eastbourne is the break in the weather, so it's just the west of Hastings in the UK. So if I bring us back to Plan G, the break is in this sort of area down here. That's where the break is. There's us. So the break's sort of here, and by the time we sort of hit the break, hopefully we can then start following it down the coast and then obviously into Shoreham. We're treated quite nicely at Shoreham with a lovely runway, which is always a nice thing. Speed's increasing now, which is quite nice. Bit of a headwind, I believe. Just double check the fuel's fine. Yep, so what we'll do is we'll flick it back across now to the left hand tank, and it can start taking from the left hand tank. And the weather seems to be closing in a little bit more, but the break is literally apparently just through here. How true that is, I don't know, but it is just through here. And as it stands, we're going to avoid Gatwick airspace quite nicely, which is a bonus treat for us, which I'm certainly not complaining about. Okay then. Oh, might need to just shuffle to the right just a little bit. I'll shuffle back to the right a little bit, there we go. Avoiding Gatwick airspace rather nicely there. And there we go, you can see us now. So the weather is obviously coming in just a little bit. It's sort of coming and going. There should be a break some point. We are approaching the break in weather, as we are also approaching the important coastline of the UK. Temperatures are fine. Speed's increased to now 109 knots on the ground speed. Elevation down in Shoreham 6 feet, which is, well, nothing to really worry about at all. So there's Gatwick out to the right. Probably won't be able to see it because the visibility is rather poor. Still no break in the weather, as Active Sky has told us, or planned us to have. Heading down out towards Mayfield. Excuse me, once again, I apologise. Like I say, I have had a cough. Okay then, so pre-landing checklist, don't need to worry about, but the brakes are obviously off, the undercarriage is fine, the mixture is rich, fuel is on the selected pump, which at the time being is the pump to the left, in the left hand tank. Instruments are as required. Carb heat is checked for ice, and if required is fine. No ice at the minute, but we'll pull it out just a little bit and we'll let it sort itself out just for the time being. Harness is fine, hatch is required, only lights are as required, and the clearance is obtained, and that's the pre-landing checklist complete. And we're not going to do a go around, so we can ignore the go around. So the next checklist is going to be the after landing checklist. There we go, that's fine. Okay then, so very shortly commence a right hand turn, and then we'll go from there. A little bit more sort of terrainy in a way. 210. And are we still clear of Gatwick's airspace? We are, lovely. So we don't necessarily need to fly out towards the coastline and follow it down. It's more of just a guidance. If you're in the sort of vicinity of the coastline, then I'm going to be happy. Obviously, taking into consideration, and here's the clear patch of weather that we spoke about. Very nice. Obviously, if we are in the vicinity today, if you can see the if the coastline is in the vicinity, it's fine, taking into consideration that there is strong clouds, so we may struggle just a little bit, and we don't want to sort of overcommit ourselves to flying towards the coastline. Still Gatwick out to the right hand side. And there's a little bit of turbulence. Oh, this isn't very good. We get thrown around here. Bleed off the speed a little bit. Nothing the Piper can't handle. Well, at the moment anyway. Push him up a little bit. Oh, we are getting thrown around a little bit here. Wasn't anticipating this. I would say when we leave this airspace, which is very, very shortly, and there's a new restriction to 3,500 before 5,500, we could climb, but the weather isn't looking in that favour. If we go a little bit higher, the visibility might get a little bit worse. So, just got to be a little bit careful with the speed as well. We'll be bumping around a little bit. The speed likes to sort of get a little mind of its own in the Piper. But there's nothing that's out of the ordinary. For a little bit of turbulence is fine. I mean, we could go lower, but we're in quite an area where there's a little bit of sort of terrain. So, I'd take it into consideration. And that's unfortunately just going to have to get the sick bag out and just brace through the turbulence. Trim down. It's fine. Continue on the track, and if we go back to plan G, there we go. You can sort of see now we're heading sort of into the new airspace, which is a restriction of 3,500 feet. Gatwick airspace we have avoided quite nicely, and this is still Class A airspace, but it's just a new restriction of 3,500. So as you can see, we're coming quite nicely into the sort of quite nicely towards Shoreham, and quite nicely towards that coastline. Just below us there, I don't know this airfield, Deanland Louise Airport. Never really heard of it, but you know, it's one of them ones really. Burgess Hill, I've heard of that. Went on a school trip there, geography trip, to look at some rivers. It was not interesting. My geography grade at GCSE reflected that trip. I feel quite bad saying that, because I did actually have quite a good time with a few friends there, but oh well. Reminiscing. Visibility, yet again, doing us no favours. And we'll come back now to the sim, and you can get a rough idea of the visibility and how the weather is closing in yet again. Weather down in Shoreham, 5 knots now. The weather is in transition, 7 degrees. It's 800 feet scattered and broken at 4,200 feet. So it's increased by 100 feet, and the scattered is also increased by quite a lot. So the weather obviously down in Brighton is in transition, so we will also have to take that into consideration. Is it worth turning right a little bit? It may well be. It may well be. And here we go, the new airspace, 5,500 feet restrictions, which is always quite nice. So we'll don't really need to climb, to be honest. But I mean, the potential is there if we need to. You can still see the ground roughly. Lovely stuff, lovely stuff. And that's fine, we can sort of stay in this rough direction now. And very shortly lose the autopilot and start a manual approach into Shoreham. Further turn needed. I reckon we'll be alright for the time being. Wind turbine down there. Bit of fog down there as well, towards the ground. Yet again, a bit more of a sort of terrainy area, so could potentially be a little bit bumpy around here as well. There we go, there it is. There is the outside of the pipe up. Plug that in, it goes quite quiet. Forgot about that. But no, okay, the sound's quite important. Okay, so visibility yet again, something we have to take into consideration, unfortunately. Getting thrown around a little bit now. Okay, so all the checklists are done and fine, nothing to really worry about there. May start a further descent down in just a little while. A nice bit of terrain in the vicinity as well. So this has been quite a good flight so far. If we head back to Plan G for what's most likely to be the final time of the flight, you get a rough idea of the whole routing. So we head out over Stapleford, sort of fly towards City's airspace, so instantly took a turn, headed back on ourselves as if we was going to do a circuit, and then headed towards Essex. Didn't go sort of as far as we was intending to, over sort of Brentwood and Basildon area. We went sort of down straight over Stamford La Hope, over Grays, and then down to sort of Gatwick's approach zone. Just east of the Gatwick, sorry. Now we're heading over Mayfield, and then we're coming down and over Brighton, which we will be able to see in a little while. So there it is, Plan G. This just helps us along this flight with some restriction information and flight planning, and it's been a great bit of kit for this this flight today. So here's Brighton now, flying over Brighton. Lose a bit of speed now, and hopefully it'll start to descend us. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll turn right, heading in a westerly direction, which is, I believe, 270 degrees. And it's pitching up quite nicely there, so 1,500 feet. And there's Brighton Pier that we spoke about a little bit earlier. And there's the coastline, obviously, which was also discussed a little earlier. So the next issue we're going to have is probably trying to find the airstrip. Which I know obviously we are heading in the right direction for. And I know we head out right in just a little while. That's what's going to be needed anyway. Wow, we're getting visibility is literally plummeting. Visibility is doing us no justice. So we're flying away from the coast now, a bit more inland to coastal final approach into Shoreham. 900 feet is what we're at the moment. There's Shoreham out to the left hand side there, you can probably make it out roughly. I will now take control, the autopilot can now come off. Wait, I was not expecting that. So I now have control. So we've got us about 1,000 feet now, I'll climb a little bit up, a little bit more. The sun coming through the clouds there can make out the rough shadow. The visibility is absolutely atrocious. It is awful. Okay, so there's the airfield. It's going to be a bit of a steep turn by the looks of it. Starting to bleed off some speed now. We'll have to put out flap 1 in just a minute. Yeah, at least the airfield's lit up, which is always a nice sign. So we'll go flap 1. So we're on the all whites, which is never a good sign. But then again though, this is VFR, so technically anything can happen. Okay, so here we go then. No more checklist. The last checklist is the after landing checklist, which is fine. So, big time bleed off the speed. Now, the only thing I've learned at the Piper is to bleed off speed and altitude. The throttle is your best friend. Flat full. I'm really starting to feel the drag now. Nearly full idle. Here we come. Literally no power in this whatsoever. The wind's picked up to 7 knots now, which I know it really isn't anything, but it's bang on the cross, which is never a good thing. Oh, what's going on here? Struggling a little bit with the handling. Two red, two white, perfect toss. Oh, a little bit of an up. Oh, we're getting front around a little bit here. Not very comfortable. Not really enjoying that. And down we come. Perfect toss. We're down. Bang on crosswind there, which I didn't really enjoy it, to be honest. It was a bit of an awful landing. Oh well. Oh well. Oh well. Oh well. Roll out all the way to the end. And then we can hide the yoke, and then we can strobe lights off. Landing lights can also come off. A little bit of braking as well, and we'll vacate left here. And the GPS can also come off. Off the Langella, stand by for the off the Langella. Sorry, carburetor heat is on cold, which it is. That's fine. Flaps are up, trims are as required. I'll set the trims to neutral on the stand. Throttle friction is fine. Fuel pumps are obviously as required, which in this station is off. Radios and navs and non-essentials are off, which in this case the radio master can now come off. I need to neutral that, which I can do in just a second. Should really not be doing this and trying to taxi at the same time, because as you can tell, it clearly hasn't worked out very well. This isn't good, this isn't good. That's fine. Perfectos, perfectos, perfectos. Okay. I only just realised I was landing in a 12-knot crosswind then. That's a little bit much for the Piper. The Piper struggled, as you can tell by the treacherous landing there. Oh well, there's always room for improvement. Welcome to Shoreham. Put onto the gate. We'll put the plane, but the fuel pumps, no, we don't need fuel, that's fine, we'll put it on the left, and we'll, oh, I don't really know if there's much room. Oh well, we'll have to find room, won't we? Make way for my Piper. We'll go onto the grass. Actually no, what we'll do is we'll just turn it around here and we'll put it here. In line with these Cessnas, or that Cessna there. There we go. Can't want much more than that. Right, I'm going to get a little bit close to him though. I don't want to get too friendly with him. Oh, that's perfect, that's fine. We'll just park it here. Okay then, excuse me once again. Shutdown checklist location is fine. Nothing is around us and obstructing. Park awake on. Engine 1200 for 30 seconds. We'll start that now. Magnetos are fine, radar navs are off, throttle is we'll stand by for the 30 seconds. And close mixture is fine, and that can come all the way out. Magnetos to off, and the key, well, we can't remove the key. Electrics off, master switch is off, fuel is off, into the off position. Harness is fine, hatch is fine, security is fine, and we're going to tie down the chocks, etc, etc. Lose the GPS. Tie downs, wheel shocks, door is open. That is okay. Land check's complete. So there we have it. There we have it. There is my first VFR video on this channel in Golf Lima Sierra. It was a bit of an adventurous flight. I mean, I certainly wouldn't choose to go VFR in that weather again anytime soon. But like I say, it was a highly enjoyable video, flight, and video, and I do hope you enjoyed this sort of bit of a change up on the channel. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always. If you enjoy the VFR, please do let me know in the comments below. I really do appreciate it. Be sure to give the video also a like, and be sure to let me know what you'd like to see as well. I know I say it quite a bit, and I know I normally don't deliver, but someone asked me, I've had a few people private message me on social media saying there's some VFR on there, so here's the first one, or not VFR style flying anyway. So like I say, it's been a pleasure. Be sure to like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it, guys, and a happy new year for 2018, and I hope you all had a lovely Christmas back in 2017. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.